So down the hill, I just had to cut it by mistake. I press buttons on my phone and it cuts. But down the hill from here, this is the trolley line that extends from Ashmont to Mattapan. And so there's an old style of trolley that still is in operation there. It's on a narrow track width. But again, so this is Milton Village. So at this site right here was Vose's Inn. And so if you go up the street this way, if you go this way, down the hill towards the Neponset River, you're going to Boston. So Dorchester's a part. Dorchester was an independent village, but then it became a part of Boston. If you go up the hill this way, we're heading to Quincy. And so what's of significance here is that the site of Daniel Vose's Inn was on a direct road to the home of John Adams. And during the colonial period, during the Revolution, John Adams was an attorney in Boston. And so he was among those seven, I believe he was among the 70 patriots. If not, then the influence that he had on the development of the Suffolk results is still, hang on. So there's just somebody following me. I didn't know if he was like right behind me. But so if you continue up this hill, I'm gonna flip this. Yeah. If you continue up the hill here, you'll come to Hutchinsfield. So the streets here split. So this street is Adams Street. Then there's Canton Avenue and Randolph Avenue, which head out to the other towns. So Canton, Massachusetts, at one point was an area where the Massachusetts Native Americans had their lodges and their hunting camps at a lake called Ponkapog in the Blue Hills. So it's important to know that the name Massachusetts, the word Massachusetts, derives from the Algonquian language spoken by the Massachusetts Indians. And it refers to and describes people who lived at the Blue Hill. And the Blue Hills specifically are the Blue Hills in Milton, Massachusetts. So at this landing point, this early point, these roads went off at that point into the frontier, which was Dedham. You know, we've got a really beautiful setup. I'm just going to kind of show you some of these flowers. It's just such a beautiful day. Yeah. So this is how quick a walk this is. So you get off down there at Milton Hill, walk up the hill here. Oh, I'm sorry. Also, right over here in this building, that is a funeral home, and that's where my father had his wake when he passed away back in 2008, 2007, something like that. So as we continue up the hill here, there's a lot of very large houses, mansions. When my father grew up here in Milton, he was born in Dorchester. And one of the things that he always told me about as a kid was that when he and his friends used to come up onto the hill here down by the water, their kids, you know, do dangerous things, maybe get drowned. But when they were up in here, he remembers as a kid seeing the entrance to a tunnel that went up under the hill here. And so I have every reason to believe he saw it. What was that tunnel, you say? Well, it was for smuggling. They used to smuggle humans, opium, all kinds of things through this town, through a tunnel system that exists under Milton Hill. So if you were ever thinking of there's a good view that's in the Neponset River here, the estuary. You can see the cattails over there. But this town, this Milton Hill, is a great setting for a lot of things. So now we're getting to there are other stories with a lot of the buildings here, the houses. There are a lot of noteworthy people who've lived here. So this isn't the comprehensive tour of every single house in the entire town. But this one, right over here, where is that? Yeah, this one. So this one is a really significant one because it's the birthplace of a U.S. president. So just a quick quiz as to which U.S. president was born in Milton, Massachusetts. Milton, Massachusetts. It's interesting because it's George Bush Sr., who only served one term after he was a vice president under Ronald Reagan in the 1980s. And of course, George Bush Sr. also was the CIA, I think he was a CIA station chief in Beijing or in China. So he had a lot of involvement with that as well. I'm going to try to run across here. We're not going to really impinge on it too much, but I want to show you the marker. And now we get into what I think is just a really significant area because it's within 4 or 5 houses. You can have a discussion about the American Revolution, World War I and II, the China trade, the U.S. foreign policy abroad, a number of different topics. So I'm just going to show this here. So this is just where George Bush was born. So 173 Adams Street, Milton, Mass. Birthplace of George Herbert Walker Bush. June 12th, 1924. So he was born almost 100 years ago. So we're here a little early. I'm not going to get too much into the house, but I don't want to really bother anybody. But as a kid, I used to walk up this street right here. I used to live right down about a half a mile down from here. So this is the Bush house right here. This is where George Herbert Walker Bush was born. Now, remember that. So he, Station Chief CIA, United States President. Okay, immediately across the street. I don't know if it's immediately across the street. The next house up was the last residence of a British governor in Massachusetts. So back shortly before, I believe it was the Boston Massacre, it was around that time, that violent, heady time, that so they came for him. This is a tax issue. A mob came up here and took the governor, who was Hutchins, from his home, tarred and feathered him, which might today seem like a prank, but during that period, there wasn't a lot of sanitation. You couldn't just go take a shower. So they were jabbing feathers through his skin and then putting pitch on him. And often when that pitch came off, most of your skin did too. So it was a really violent, really painful thing to do to somebody. No, it's not this one. I believe, the Hutchins Mansion is this one up here. This one. Yeah, this yellowish one over here. And so I'm going to go back across the street. So that's on that side of the street. This is all private property over here, so I can't walk up on people's houses or anything. And so now I've also come to this spot, which is Hutchins Field. Here. So, we'll just walk a little more. So up here, this was the Hutchins Mansion, where the last British governor was in office until he was removed and tarred and feathered. Beginning of the American Revolution, precursor to the American Revolution. We have the Suffolk Resolves house downhill. This was back during the colonial era. This street, Adams Street, would have just been a trail through woods, but a well-developed one. And this, if you follow Adams Street, it goes directly to the home of John Adams, who was the second president of the United States. So I think it's really crucial to understand you had a moment in 1774. George Washington is at Vose's Inn. John Adams is in Quincy. They're not far apart at all, And that Washington moves with the army a great deal. Adams was here and in Washington, in Boston. But he didn't move around nearly as much as Washington did. But that's President 1, President 2. And what's also interesting, there's another interesting presidential little bit of trivia. So, John Adams from Massachusetts, from Quincy, right along this street, his son, John Quincy Adams, also was elected to the office of president. They're both Massachusetts people. George Bush, who's born right here, on the same street that extends to the home of the second president of the United States, John Adams. Also, his son was elected president of the United States. You know, both from Massachusetts. Well, the thing is, so George Bush Jr. was not, I don't believe he was born in Massachusetts. Maybe I'm wrong. I think he was born in Texas or Maine, but I'm not really sure. But anyway, so again, this is the Hutchins Mansion over here. I almost lived there, I think, at some point. And so it's kind of a shame that I can't walk around up here, because when I was a kid, I used to go all behind here. I used to go all down this hill, all in this field here. And so behind this building, there's a greenhouse, a big glass greenhouse, Victorian era. There are lots of wildflowers that grow in the spring. I wish I could go back there now, because it was just like a carpeted floor of bluebells all throughout that. And then behind that is St. Michael's Church. This is an Anglican church. No, Episcopal church that's behind that. And then, so we have the Hutchins Mansion here. So this is the country highway. There's a sign up here. I'll just read it. The country highway, provided for by the General Court in 1639, connect the Plymouth and Bay colonies. This portion was laid out in 1654 on the line of an old Indian trail. And again, this connects all the way down to Plymouth. And during the colonial era, this connected those two spots. So, why you would have the British governor here in Milton, you've got a beautiful view of the harbor. You could sit out here and look for ships coming in, see who's in port. You're right on the main road. There aren't a lot of other routes. So anyway. So that's the Hutchins Mansion. So then the next house we come to, which is again another very significant house in American history, is the Robert Bennett Forbes house. And so Robert Bennett Forbes was involved in what was called the China trade. So he traded goods to China. He's kind of an interesting fellow. He moved to Canton, China. He was moved to Canton, China, I think at the age of 8 or 9, and spent most of his life in China, or a great deal of his early life there. And so his house is right here. Again, it's private. It's a museum now, and I really don't know the hours. But there's some cool stuff here. I'm kind of nervous about walking onto any of these places because I don't want to get in trouble. And so, as a kid, we used to sneak around all up in here. There's a bunch of other buildings attached here. You know what? I'm going to go over there and just show you some stuff because it's pretty neat. Oh, there's people. I can't. I'm not going to hazard it. But you kind of see behind me. So this is the Robert Bennett Forbes Mansion right here. And so, if we look the other way from the Robert Bennett Forbes Mansion, see right down to the harbor there. Right down to it. Through the trees there, like these trees might have been cut. You had a great vantage point because all goods and trade came by ship. So you wanted to be in a high point where you could see what's coming into port, know when to send somebody down into Boston. Yeah. This museum had a lot of programs as a kid. Like in the front yard here, I remember when I was like in 2nd or 3rd grade, they had like some kind of fair or something. And that's how my first experiences with calligraphy and stuff like that were there. But, yeah, we're not done. I'll keep going. All right. So, if we go this way, over here, these are just some kind of cool houses. This one, I don't fully know the story of, but it's always been this weird, it's like the White House. I don't know the story of this one over here. But I just can't look at this. Is 224. Yeah, they're just beautiful houses. But I wanted to show you a couple more things. Yeah, this one over here. I've always thought that this just has there's some story behind this one, and I don't quite know what it does. But coming down Adams Street, we get to Churchill's Lane. And so Churchill's Lane was another one of these old trails, old paths that got converted into a road. And so this place here, the estuary, is where they would harvest shellfish and food in the springtime. And when it got warm, they could go down here and harvest shellfish. And they were following this trail here, which leads, if you follow this trail, it leads to the Blue Hills, which was where the Massachusetts had their homes, where they lived, I think. So I'll just show this one really quick. On this one here, which is just, yeah, so this one is the Indian Trail. Is this flipped? Oh, it is. Everything's backward. I think it is, because I have it flipped. But anyway, the Indian Trail, Churchill's Lane, when the Indians sold their land near the mouth of the Neponset River. Yeah. So Churchill's Lane, when the Indians sold their land near the mouth of the Neponset River to the territory south of the Blue Hills, which was basically through Quincy, which they called Ponkapog, Sweetwater. So Ponkapog is still the name of a lake that's in Canton, Massachusetts, and it sits to the west of the Blue Hills. It's a big lake, and so my understanding is that's where a lot of the ceremonial hunting lodges and things took place when people were practicing Native American beliefs as opposed to Christianity. Yeah. So I'm not going to really get into too much of a discussion about that history of Massachusetts. I think it's something for another time. But of significance here is that up here on the hill here, and I don't know if it's this house, I can't remember which house it was. Back after World War II, there was an admiral who had been born in Milton, grew up here. His last name was Sweeney. It was Admiral Sweeney. And so he was the pilot of the bomber that dropped a nuclear bomb on Nagasaki. And so after the war, he came back here to his home. He lived here. And so this one hill in this area, we have so many connections to Asia. Sorry, let me get across the street. To World War II in Asia, to the China trade in Asia, to the United States foreign policy in Asia, vis-a-vis the director of the CIA in Asia. Yeah. And this is all from this little walk I did. I mean, it's about a 20-minute walk. You can check out all these spots. And I don't know that I'm even doing some of these stories justice, because I think some of them are way more detailed. And there's more to some of this. I think the biggest thing is this is where I grew up. So since I was a kid, this stuff was always omnipresent in my mind. I always knew about these things. I never didn't know about some of these things, which I don't think everybody has. I know a lot of people live and don't really have a connection to places as I had, when I was younger. So I'm gonna go down here though. We'll go down to the field a bit. Yeah. So, yeah, that's the walking tour of Milton Hill. I think it's one of the most significant spots in all of New England, or in all of Massachusetts, and probably one of the most significant spots in the United States with regards to the history of the country, the United States. Because it crisscrosses and there's connections to all of these other local things. The Adams House, if you came and did this, came and visited this spot, I do it on foot. You walk a few more miles, you're going to get down to Quincy. And if you keep walking past the Adams mansion through Quincy, if you go to the right place, you'll come to a creek that empties into Quincy Harbor, I think, Quincy Bay. And that creek is Bent's Creek. Because at some point, there are people related to me who lived around there. I think a lot of us were in Sudbury, Massachusetts, though. They moved to Sudbury, Mass. And then from there, they moved down into Virginia, West Virginia, Missouri, and then up into Colorado. And into the western states. But here, this is grown since I was a kid too. It's like these 3 trees here. There's 3 trees in kind of a triangle, you know. And I've always wondered if there was significance to this, like if there's something underneath here. Beautiful, beautiful big old trees. But it's great to not have the foliage down below there, because you can kind of see out. And you can see what this harbor looks like. Let's see what's over here. A lot of birds actually. Just gonna walk all the way down to the bottom. I think somebody might have left a bouquet out. But yeah, this area down here, so according to my dad, there were tunnels here under the hill. And you know, what's happened to them? Are there people that also know about that? Probably. I'm not the only one who knows the history of this town. You know, I wouldn't suggest you come out here trying to find the tunnels on your own. I think you might run into some trouble. Just walking down the field here. You can hear the city so close by. I'm gonna stop this.